What's up, y'all? This is Joy D'Angela. I'm here with the one and only Rick Berry. Rick, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great. There's probably a lot of people happy there's only one of me.
I'm weak. So we are right here in Charlotte, North Carolina for the Big Three. Rick, how are you feeling about the triplets matchup for tomorrow?
Well, obviously, this is a team that won the championship a couple of years back. They've got an MVP player a couple of years that he was here, Joe Johnson, who's ISO Joe, great player, had a great career in the NBA. Got the Pargos. They've got a nice team. They have the same record that we have. It's a critical game for us. I'm confident that our guys will play well. We've done that all season long. We've actually have played well. We haven't played every game as well as we would like to have played it. We've had stretches where we were a little bit inefficient and made a lot of mistakes, but yet we are very resilient and we overcome that. And even when we've gotten behind, the guys never panic. They just stick to the game plan. We move the ball, we pass the ball, we play unselfishly. And, we won some games without it being our top guys, without it being Leandro and Jody scoring all the points. I mean, Dwan has come through big time for us. Jalen has done a great job. We've had Jeff knocking in some threes, as a 7-footer, which is pretty cool to have a guy that big who can shoot and stretch the floor that way. So it'll be interesting to see. It's all going to come down to how well we do defensively to make Joe have to work really hard to get his points, because he's going to get his points. Let's face it. I mean, you're not going to. Yeah. I know nobody locks you down, and he's a scorer. He's not a shooter. He's a scorer, and it's very difficult to lock down a scorer because there's a lot of ways to score points. So if we do a good job with that, then we have to also hope, because any game when you play basketball comes down to which team is shooting the ball really well. So no matter how well we play, if they're shooting the ball out of their mind and knocking down threes and making everything they throw up there, we're going to have a tough time, and we'd have to be able to match that. So I'm hoping that our guys will be hot. The nice thing is that we won a few games without Jody having his normally really great games, although he had a couple of big threes for us late in the last game. Those two guys are very consistent, Leandro and Jody, and I think we found that Dwan is also very efficient. He was the fourth man of the year last year, and he has been terrific for us, and he'll be starting again because we'll stretch the floor, take Sanders away from the basket, because he has to guard him, but he really doesn't want to do that. So I think Dwan's going to get a lot of good looks, and I'm hoping that he's going to be on. He's been shooting the ball exceptionally well, maybe better than anybody on the team right now from distance especially. So we'll see how that works out. And then the guy that's been a pleasant, not a surprise for me, because I really liked him when I watched him. He played with my son Canyon when he played in the G League with the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Iowa Wolves, and that's Jalen. I like Jalen a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, if I was a coach in the NBA, Jalen, without question, would be on my team as a 26-year-old. He doesn't back down. He's shown me he can pass the heck out of the ball. He can score inside. I think that he's an unknown quantity for us and an entity that I think could be a big factor going down the stretch for us. And I might find a way to get him even more involved offensively. He showed me a lot in the last game with his physicality and the way he gets after it, and that crazy lob dunk that he made. I was sitting there, I saw Leandro throw that ball. I said, oh, no. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I see this arm and hand reach up there, and he smashes it in. That was pretty impressive.
You saw the dance afterwards, the dance that he did?
Oh, yeah, I saw the little shimmy. He gave it a little shimmy.
So, Rick, you played mainly in the 70s, and we're 60 years removed from your era. And the game has changed tremendously. What is one thing that you want the game of basketball to keep building no matter how much the game evolves?
Well, I also played 5 years in the 60s. I actually played in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I saw 3 different decades. And I've seen the game change, an evolution of the game. And obviously the biggest change has been the three-point shot. Right. It's gotten to the point now where the three-point shot is such an integral part of the game. And sometimes I look at the rosters of some of the NBA teams and I'm thinking to myself, why is he on the team? He's a wing player and he can't shoot threes worth a damn. I mean, if you can't shoot threes in today's game, you become a liability. You better be either blocking a lot of shots and rebounding or doing something really good, because you got it. You have to make shots and you have to make threes. If you look at the statistics, and I'm not a huge statistical guy, although our guy Christian is awesome with analytics and stats, and the team that outshoots the other one from 3-point range the majority of the time wins the game. Doesn't always happen, because my Warriors in the playoffs this last season, they killed the Lakers from 3-point range in one of the games, but they were one-dimensional. They hardly did anything going to the basket. They had 5 points from the free throw line, and the Lakers had 25 points from the free throw line. So that 20-point differential more than made up for the extra threes that the Warriors had over the Lakers. So since I'm so long-winded, I'm actually going to Ireland pretty soon to go, and I'm going to kiss the Blarney Stone. Somebody said somebody in the family probably did it, because that means you do a lot of talking if you're an Irishman. I'm going to answer your question, because I gave you a whole big long answer, but I never did answer your question. I really would like to see the game get to the point where more and more teams will try to play the game the way I like it to be played, which is pass, move, cut, like my Warriors team has done. And one of the reasons they won multiple championships over the last decade or so is because of the fact that they play the game the way it was designed to be played. Pass, move, cut, understand it. Team defense, a commitment to that. That's the way the game should be played. It's more fun to play it that way. It's more fun to coach a team that plays that way, and it's more fun to watch a game that's played that way.
Got you. So I know you brought up the Warriors, and I do agree with everything you just said about how they play basketball. Now let's look at where they are now. Draymond Green's getting older. Curry, he's still Curry. Clay's getting older. You know, he has declined to a certain extent. Jordan Poole went to the Wizards. How do you feel about the state of the Warriors right now?
I really think they have a chance to be a really good team next year. I'm actually excited about it. Poole wasn't fitting in. There was not a lot of great chemistry there. A lot of that came out after the trade went down. And Draymond still is Draymond. He can still do the things he does, and he's done a better job of controlling his emotions and getting all those silly technical fouls that cause problems. Clay can still play at a high level. Steph obviously can play at a high level. The guy's amazing. I love Steph Curry. And now they have someone that is a real positive part of what their team's going to be about. Yes, they're talking about CP3. They have a veteran player who's going to be a Hall of Famer down when he retires 5 years later. Can you imagine now? One of the keys to success of any championship team is, how does your bench play? You can't win with just 5 guys or 6 guys. You have to have a bench. Well, now they have a player like Chris Paul to be the guy heading up that bench group. And on top of that, I know if I was Steve Kerr, I would be sometimes going small. And this, I hope he does. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. Chris Paul as the point guard. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can always give it to Steph as well. And Draymond brings it up sometimes. That's the versatility that they have. But with Chris Paul doing it, giving the freedom to Curry to not have to work so hard, bringing it up against all of that, and just be running and taking his man and running him off his teammates, trying to get them to screen off his guy. I would not want to be the guy to guard Steph Curry in that situation.
Right.
And you've got Chris Paul with the ball in his hands, who can score from 3, can score from mid-range, can get the ball delivered to the people at the right time. They've got guys that can shoot the ball from threes, can get to the basket. They're good free throw shooters. This is going to be a very difficult team to defend. And I hope that Steve does that. I'm sure he's going to do it at some time, to have that lineup in Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Wiggins, and the big guy. I think it's George. He can't pronounce the names half the time. But anyway, that team would be very interesting to see on the floor at one time.
So what were your thoughts, last question on the Warriors, what were your thoughts on the whole Draymond Green, Jordan Poole situation? Do you think it was overblown?
No, it obviously wasn't overblown. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal at the time. Stuff like that kind of happens. But there obviously was more to it. I think that Jordan didn't really deal with it well. I don't think he ever forgave him for it. I saw some things late in the season when he came off the court. There was issue. There was an issue there. And I did say, and I do my own podcast and stuff and talk about the Warriors with my co-host Cyrus Satchis, and on Mic'd Up, which is a really cool system to do. And I said, there's no way, if they're going to keep Draymond Green, Poole has to go. Mm. And if they're going to keep Poole, Draymond has to go. They were not going to coexist. It just didn't really work for them well. Plus the fact, Jordan Poole is very fortunate. He had a really good year, and then they gave him a max contract, which, to be honest with you, I would never have given him a max contract.
And why is that?
Because he didn't play long enough at that level. Mm. The max contracts are somebody that's proven they can give you that kind of performance year after year. You earn the right to get a max contract. He didn't play. He had a nice year, but they didn't have 2 great years in a row or 3 great years in a row. And they were very fortunate. to get that deal done, to be able to unload that big contract in order to be able to make some moves and put together the team that they now have.
So do you think, when you look at Jordan Poole with the Wizards, do you think that he'll ever reach that max contract potential, or do you think he's just not that type of player?
Well, he's going to get his money whether he plays well or not. It's
Right.
a guaranteed deal. So it'll be interesting to see, how much they turn him loose. I mean, he's liable to score more points there.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying he's not a bad player, but he has to prove that he can be consistent.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you're getting paid, $40-50 million a year, you sure as hell better play really well. I mean, seriously. I mean, you look at some of the contracts they have, even, like Brown, $306 million. I mean, that's just hard for me to believe. I mean, you know what his average in the playoffs for them is 18.5 points a game. I mean, 18.5 points a game, and he's going to make $69 million in the last year of his contract.
That's great. That's a lot of money, Rick.
But 18.5 points a game that's nothing. I mean, seriously, to pay somebody that kind of money, and he's a nice player. I really like him. But, man, he's got to improve his game. He turns the ball over too much. He tries to force things, and so is his teammate, Tatum. That's one of the reasons they lost to the Warriors 2 seasons ago. They make too many turnovers. In the game of basketball, you must say, there's a saying, keep it simple, stupid. Okay? Keep it as simple as possible. You take what the defense gives you. That's what I try to instill in my guys here with the ball hogs. Take what the defense gives you. A play is only designed so everybody knows where they are, and if the ideal thing happens, you know where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do if certain things happen. But if other things happen, you change. You do it. You go the other way. You, again, take what the defense gives you.
Now, this generation, we're in 2023. I have never seen any 100-point game from Wilt Chamberlain. Everybody in this era, no, I won't say everybody. A lot of people in this era thinks that game never happened. Nobody knows how good Wilt actually was because there's not much footage on him. So someone who played, back then and, and witnessed Wilt Chamberlain, how great was he? Would you put him on the category of LeBron James? And was the 100-point game real?
It's remarkable. No, they say records are made to be broken. That record's never going to be broken. That's insane.
So it actually happened.
Well, of course it happened. They had, but the thing about it is even crazier than that. That's just one game. The guy averaged 50 freaking points a game for an entire NBA season. That's ridiculous. I mean, I averaged almost 37. So I got to figure, I got to average 13 more points a game for 80-something games. I mean, the thought of that is just mind-numbing to me. It really is. And then to see somebody like Kendrick Perkins, all of a sudden, there's this great expert on the NBA. This is a guy that was he wasn't any great player. I mean, he made millions of dollars, and he wasn't anything special as a player. And, it seems like a really good person at all. Don't know him personally. It seems like he's got a great sense of humor and personality. But this guy put a team together and didn't have Wilt Chamberlain listed on it as an all-time set. I mean, he had a list of centers without Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, what is he, out of his freaking mind? I mean, this is insane. I mean, Wilt Chamberlain, he's the greatest offensive center to play the game and one of the greatest defensive centers to play a game. So if you ever pick players, it's not by put him with LeBron. No, LeBron's a 3 who could play 2 and even play some point guard, but he's a legitimate 3. He's a 3-man. So if you want to have a conversation, talk about players who play the same position. You can't compare LeBron to Wilt Chamberlain. You can't compare Magic Johnson to Wilt Chamberlain or to LeBron. They're different players playing different positions that require different skills. That'd be like in baseball. You're going to take Sandy Koufax, one of the greatest pitchers ever, and compare him to my boyhood hero, Willie Mays. It makes no sense. One's a center fielder, one's a freaking pitcher. I mean, so let's get realistic here, folks. Stop this GOAT stuff. When I played, the GOAT was the worst player. You screwed up. You were the GOAT, Now the GOAT, greatest of all time. And I get sick and tired of hearing who's better, LeBron or Michael or whatever, or Magic. Go by positions. Then you can have a meaningful discussion. Otherwise, it's a moot point. It makes no sense whatsoever to start comparing these guys. And stop comparing the guys from one era to the other era. It's a different brand of basketball that's played now. There was no three-point shot back in my days, except when I got in the NBA in the last few years in the NBA and the ABA. And so it's a different sport. It's played totally differently. So compare the people in their eras and have a good conversation. Who's the best at each position? This nonsense that they do, it's all these talking heads. They have nothing else to talk about, so they keep bringing this up, and then it's a waste of time. And the same thing when I get on, people call me, well, who do you think will win the championship? I say, how the hell do I know who's going to win the championship? If I knew that, I'd be making a fortune, and I'd be going to Vegas and laying down my bets, and I would retire. I don't know. I mean, there's too many variables involved, and there's injuries, and who the heck knows what those are? I said, hey, let's talk when they go into the playoffs. I can have you a meaningful conversation, tell you who I think may win based upon how they're playing right now, what their health is as far as injuries, and now you can have a reasonable conversation. But don't ask me in freaking November who I think is going to win the championship.
Now, quick question. So, as far as Wilt goes and people from that era goes, like this generation get very, very disrespectful when it comes to, that era. And they always say like, oh, well, Wilt Chamberlain, even if he did put up 100, it was against plumbers. They call them plumbers.
But please, the plumbers. Are you kidding me? They had so many great centers back in those. They hardly have centers. The guys that are centers now, they're not centers. I mean, they play on the wing. They're all wanting to shoot 3-point shots. I mean, they don't block shots. They don't protect the rim. I mean, it's a different game. So people don't understand. I've had many people say, well, Rick, you guys wouldn't be able to play with these guys today. I said, okay, what drugs are you on? Okay, because you got a problem. Because if you really understood the game and you really knew what the difference was between when we played and the guys playing here, we had nothing to help us. I mean, zero.
It's about officiating.
We didn't have a strength coach. I didn't have an agility coach. I didn't have a dietitian. I didn't travel on charter planes so that we could get a good night's sleep and get to the next city and have a nice day. We drove ourselves around in rental cars. I mean, we had $8 a day per diem. These guys get chartered food on their planes. I mean, it's such a different world. We didn't have whirlpools, and we didn't have saunas, and we didn't have masseuses, and we didn't have any of that. If I played today, I would be faster. And I was pretty fast, okay, and quick. I'd be faster, stronger, quicker, more endurance, jump higher. I would be so much better a basketball player because I had none of those things available to me. Zero. It was what you did on your own. It's absolutely crazy how much better the guys that I played with, the Oscar Robertsons, the Jerry West, the Elgin Baylors, the Earl Monroes, the Walt Fraziers. I can go down the list. I mean, just all of these great guys that I got to play against and with in all-star games. All of us, as good as we were, and as great as some of them were, would be even greater playing today.
Wow.
So we should end on that.
I love it. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. Listen, one thing I like about Rick, he's honest, and he has a filter, but he doesn't at the same time. I love it. Thank you for your honesty, and thanks for tuning in.